He's very
So
he's very sassy.
seems nice.
You know, where
Okay, I get it.
I mean, he's been nice since we've been setting it up. But like he's got kind of like a sassy attitude, and I don't mean that like sassy's trying to be derogatory. He's just fiery. Like if you watch his videos, um, he he goes in hard. So I'm not sure how that's going to go. He's been nice in setting up emails, but I look forward to having him on as well. We'll see if Steve can't change his
Yeah,
mind on
we'll
YEC.
see. It's gonna be pretty cool to have a young electricianist actually come on and open to having possible criticisms or questions asked to them.
Yep. Okay. So, Steve, I have a question for you. Am I being
Okay,
detained?
you are being detained right now.
Artie, am I being detained?
Yes, you are being detained.
Damn it. Okay. Uh,
So
everyone,
here's
this
my
is
ID. God damn it! Here's my ID. I'm showing it to you.
this is Artie. Originally, we were going to have a show on, and we're still going to have this. The schedules just didn't something happened with the scheduling. But we were originally going to have a discussion on the forced sterilization of some prisoners. I've got a guy that deals with that, which I thought would be a really important topic to talk about. We're just going to reschedule that, and I have to tell you, Artie, I really appreciate you being able to jump in and fill in last minute because Artie is actually one of the people that filled out that form that we've got. And if you haven't done it yet, and you have like a topic that you're passionate about, we want to hear from you. And especially for shows like this, we get you in. You have an interesting topic, we bring you in. We all discuss it. Tonight we're going to be talking about sovereign citizens. But if you want to go to that link and fill out the form, if you have something that you're passionate about or that you think we should cover, there's a form you can fill out. You can go to tinyurl.com/nonsecme. That's NonSeqme, and fill out that form, and we'll get you on here. So, Artie, thank you, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, again, thank you guys for having me on. I have been a attorney since 2010, practicing since. I am licensed in New Jersey and New York. My channel is, if most of you go there, it'll probably be about 90% will be video game related because that's kind of like my primary hobby. However, 10% is dedicated to sovereign citizens. They have been a sort of a private, personal, passion of mine, a subject of mine that I've been intrigued about for about 4 or 5 years now. I have dealt with them personally on as part of my job duties, and it's always been just a passion for me to discover like who they are, why they think the way they think, and oftentimes, I try to have a back and forth with them, but most of the time they're not very keen on having a one-to-one discussion.
Yeah, I try to actually get quite a few on here, and the every single one that I've sent out, they always say nope, they're not interested. The one person that we did get on here, he's actually been on here twice, but we didn't talk about sovereign citizens because, believe it or not, he had other things that trumped being a sovereign citizen. But we had allegedly Dave, who is
Yeah.
in England they call themselves Freeman on the land.
Yes.
It's not
Yeah.
sovereign. Yeah.
The sovereign citizen is a kind of a primarily an American term for the group.
Mm-hmm.
Other name for them is constitutionalist, but in the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the former Commonwealth countries, it's always been like free men on the land.
Got it. In here, I'm sure you're going to go into this a little bit, but they also call themselves natural man or something like that, right?
That's generally like the common identifier. I'm the natural born living man, the flesh and blood human being. But that goes into the whole idea of their one of their ideologies, which is they try to separate with their full self.
Gotcha. And to start us out, why don't you tell us? We were talking before the show came on. We're talking about Kent Hovind. Why don't you tell us of that story again? Because I thought that was fantastic. I didn't know that about him.
Yes. So I knew Kent Hovind long before as somebody who tried to employ sovereign tactics. Before I knew of him as like a very hardcore, very outspoken, younger creationist. Back in 2007, he used typical sovereign tactics in order to avoid tax responsibility for himself as well as his religious organization. Obviously, they didn't work, and he was thrown in prison in 2007. While he was in prison for that, in 2015, he started filing false liens against certain public officials like police officers, prosecutors, and so on, as a result of his imprisonment, which is another tactic that they have used. Unfortunately for him, fortunately for him, he was acquitted of a contempt charge that was placed in relation to that, but that's beside the point. The long and short of it is that he has employed these sorts of tactics that originally started with like the tax protester group, but then were later employed by a lot of these sovereign citizens. And for the record, there are similar but distinct groups. There are certain tax protesters who don't have the whole ideology contained in, but a lot of sovereigns tend to use a lot of tax protester tactics and ideas.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to learning all about sovereign citizens. Real quick, how did you find our show? I always ask people that come on that I know actually watched.
Well, thanks to YouTube recommendations, I was kind of dabbing into the Flat Earth YouTube rabbit hole, and lo and behold, the NonSequitur show, one or a couple of the episodes brought up, and I've been around, hanging around ever since.
Excellent. I'm kind of sad that it's mostly the Flat Earth that brings people here, but I guess Steve, I think you're muted.
YouTube recommends us for Flat Earth. No, I'm not muted. But it's like every time I hear a story about YouTube recommending us, it's not for any of the content that I really, love to have people come on and talk about things like this. Nope, it's about the Flat Earth stuff. It's like, really?
Let that sink in for a second. That's what YouTube relegates us to.
Yep, it's true. We are slave to the machine. All right, I'm going to let you take it from here and teach us about sovereign citizens.
Okay, so it's funny because before the show began, someone who was either a Poe or a concerned troll or all of the above kept on asking the live chat, what is a sovereign citizen? Can you define it? I would define a sovereign citizen as an individual who, based upon their perceived status, assert that the local, state, or federal laws do not apply to them, or they have a selective belief in that the laws apply to them. A sovereign citizen is a catch-all term because within sovereign citizen there are different types of people who believe the laws that apply to them for various different reasons. It could be religious, it could be political, it could be ideological, it could be racial. It is generally a catch-all term that was coined in the early 1970s when they first started appearing in our court system. Where do they come from? That is kind of a subject up for the debate. Based on my research, a lot of it has stemmed from early, white supremacist groups from the late 60s, as a result of the civil rights movement. The reason I say that is because a lot of the early claims that they make is often related to the 14th Amendment, which, as some of us know from the late 60s, the 14th Amendment was a very critical amendment during the civil rights era. And so they would try to disassociate themselves with that amendment, or say that the amendment was, improperly ratified, et cetera, et cetera. What types of sovereign citizens are there? Sorry, if you want to ask me something.
Oh, no, please go ahead.
Well, what was that? Well, the 14th Amendment was the naturalization amendment, right?
Yes, all persons born recognized, are citizens of the U.S. The 14th Amendment was essentially guaranteeing citizenship to the former slaves as part of it, but it has obviously continued to expand to all Americans born in the United States.
Okay.
So what types are there? On the American side, there are three that I've tend to kind of separate. There is one that's very religiously based. I only follow God's law. Natural law, that sort of aspect. I don't follow the laws of man, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is like kind of the conspiratorial. The United States as the corporation due to the Federal Reserve, the FDR's gold executive order from 1933 made us all into slaves. You go into the rabbit hole when you kind of go down that area, but that's a very specific one. And then there's one that's very unique in the sense that this is a very much an African American centric belief. The Moorish Americans. I don't know if you guys have heard of this before.
They're hilarious.
Yeah, well, yeah, hilariously insane. I would say out of all the group, that's kind of insane in the sense of they have a very, 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 very revisionist history of the United States and the world. They believe that Morocco or the Moors were a pan-global empire that was African Americans were in fact the indigenous people in the United States and America. All of us Europeans are foreigners. It's insane. I guess the best way of saying it, but that is, I would say, the third other kind of category I would place them into.
They say that this land is or America is really what they call Morocco, correct?
Yes, it is a form of Morocco, or Amexem, or Land of Frogs. Yes, that's actually what
Land of Frogs
has said. Yes, Land of Frogs.
What is that about?
I don't know, man. You're asking the wrong person. I know what I've read. I can't explain to you where they got their cartography from. And their naming conventions.
I actually might have some developments have gone on in the live chat while you were giving us that introduction, and it might be your lucky day because there is a sovereign citizen that wants to come in and give his side as well.
Oh, is it Truth Seeker?
No, it's his name is King.
All right. Well, let's bring him on then, Mr. Okay. King. Because I know Truth Seeker is also a particular individual, but he doesn't want to join in.
No, he bitched out last time with Reds about the shape of the planet. He was supposed to have a debate with Reds, and he was nowhere to be found when it came time. So
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, but it's not. It's pretty happens regularly actually. Is there any? Do you want to touch on a couple more points while I bring him? It's going to take me a few minutes to get him in here.
Sure. So that was just kind of the American side. I already alluded to that they're in the UK and the former Commonwealth countries. They're called freemen on the land, and the thing is that what I've noticed that freemen on the land do or have done is that they kind of replaced a lot of the I don't know how you say the documents that they reference. They've all anglicized them. So instead of sovereign citizens will cite the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, etc. Well, freemen on the land, they'll cite the Magna Carta. They'll cite the British and English Bill of Rights, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So they kind of Americanize them, yet they'll still cite American law dictionaries in their arguments, but that's neither here nor there. And then finally, one thing that was that's fairly recent is that I've just recently discovered there